All right, so like, have you ever been scrolling through your phone, on social media or whatever,
Oh, yeah.
and it's like almost creaky how the algorithm knows exactly what to show you next to keep you, you know, totally hooked? It
Definitely.
can be pretty freaky.
Hmm.
That's AI doing its thing, right? Like figuring us out.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But here's the thing. It's not always playing fair. Today we're going to like take this deep dive into the dark side of AI.
Okay.
The sneaky ways bias can like really get baked into these systems.
We like that baked in.
Yeah, like it's not always obvious,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
We're using this really interesting podcast episode as like our starting point.
Hmm.
It's called The Bias Problem, Why AI Discriminates and How to Fix It.
Catchy title.
Yeah, and it's packed with some pretty unsettling examples that we're going to unpack today.
I think a lot of people think of AI as this like perfectly neutral, objective thing.
Yeah, for sure.
But the reality is it's learning from us, from the data we feed it. And unfortunately, that data,
Yeah.
often full of our own human biases.
Okay, so let's like jump right into a specific example. This podcast episode talks about this guy, Robert Williams,
Oh, I know about this case. Yeah.
where AI bias had really serious real-world consequences.
Yeah, absolutely. So this was back in 2020. Robert Williams is a black man living in Detroit. He got arrested because a facial recognition system, like the ones they use for security and stuff,
Uh-huh.
totally misidentified him.
Whoa, so like the AI just got him wrong.
Got him wrong. And here's the thing. There are studies showing that these facial recognition systems, their error rates can be like 35% higher for darker skin tones.
35%.
Seriously.
Compared to lighter skin tones.
I mean, I knew facial recognition wasn't perfect, but that's a huge difference.
It's a massive problem. And it all comes back to the data that's used to train the AI. If the data itself is biased, if it's mostly images of people with lighter skin, the AI is going to inherit that bias.
So garbage in, garbage out, basically.
Exactly. And in Robert Williams' case, that garbage out meant a wrongful arrest,
Yeah.
Who knows how many other cases like this have happened, right? Like that we don't even know about.
It's really concerning, especially when you think about how AI is being used more and more for things that really affect people's lives.
Yeah, high-stakes stuff.
Exactly.
And it's not just facial recognition either. This podcast episode also goes into how AI bias can mess up hiring practices.
Oh, yeah.
Like apparently Amazon tried to create an AI-powered hiring tool.
Oh, right. I remember reading about that.
Yeah, it didn't exactly go as planned.
It's like a classic example of what we call algorithmic bias.
Okay.
So the AI itself isn't necessarily biased, right? It's just learning from the data we give it. In this case, Amazon trained their AI on like a decade of their own hiring data. But that data basically reflected the existing gender imbalance in their workforce. Way more men than women.
So the AI just kind of learned that men are the ones who get hired, and so it thought that was the way it should be.
Yeah, basically. It started penalizing resumes that had words like women's in them.
So like captain of the women's chess club or something.
Exactly. You could be amazing, perfect for the job, but just because you mentioned something related to being a woman, the AI might toss your application.
It is so messed up.
Right. And the irony is people talk about AI as a way to make hiring fairer, more objective.
Right.
But
Right.
this is the opposite. It's like automating discrimination.
Wow.
Yeah. Rejected by a bot before a human even lays eyes on your resume.
It's almost like the AI was living in the past, stuck in these outdated ideas about who should be doing what.
Totally.
So like what can we actually do about this? I mean, this all sounds really discouraging.
Well, the podcast episode does talk about some solutions.
Okay. Yeah.
One of the big ones is transparency.
Transparency.
Yeah, like we need to be able to see how these algorithms are working, open source audits, so independent researchers can actually go in and look for bias.
That makes sense. Like shining a light on these algorithms so we can see what's going on.
Exactly. And there are already some examples of this, like with OpenAI's GPT-4 model. Researchers found gender bias in there.
Whoa. Really? Even in something like GPT-4.
Yeah, so this kind of scrutiny is really important.
But wouldn't companies like totally push back on that? Like wouldn't they say, that's our secret sauce, we can't just show everyone how it works?
Oh, absolutely. There's going to be pushback.
Yeah.
But finding that right balance between protecting their intellectual property and making sure AI development is ethical, that's going to be really, really important.
That's for sure. And the podcast also mentioned diversity, right? Like in the teams building AI.
Oh, absolutely. Having people from different backgrounds, different experiences involved from the very beginning,
Hmm.
that's crucial. They can challenge assumptions, make sure a wider range of perspectives are considered.
Okay.
There are groups like the Algorithmic Justice League. They're doing great work pushing for this.
So it's not just about the data, but also about who's creating and interpreting that data.
Exactly.
And what about, like, regulations?
Mhm.
Can't governments step in and set some rules?
Yeah, that's where things get interesting. The EU is actually doing something pretty big. They have this AI Act. It actually bans certain uses of AI that they consider high risk, like things that could lead to biased hiring or discrimination in policing.
Whoa, seriously. That sounds promising, but how do they actually make sure companies follow the rules? Like, AI is so complicated, it's not like you can just, look over someone's shoulder and see what they're doing.
It's a huge challenge, but the EU AI Act has this framework for assessing and mitigating risks. They're talking about things like independent audits and certifications. It's
Smart.
definitely a step in the right direction. It'll be really fascinating to see how it plays out.
Totally. So we've covered, like, facial recognition messing up,
Hmm.
hiring bots discriminating, even international regulations,
Yeah.
trying to get a handle on all of this.
It's a lot. Yeah.
Like, what does all this mean for the average person? Should we be freaking out?
I don't think freaking out helps, but I think it means we need to be aware. AI bias isn't just some theoretical problem. It's something that can impact us in our everyday lives. And it's not limited to just one area, right? We've talked about a couple of examples, but it can affect healthcare, finance, the justice system, so many things.
Yeah, it's kind of everywhere, huh?
Yeah. But I think the first step is just being aware that this is an issue.
Okay, so awareness. Got it.
Yeah.
This deep dive has been pretty eye-opening, to be
It's
honest.
a lot to take in, yeah.
Like, it makes you wonder, how can we be more mindful of AI bias in our own lives? Like, should we always just trust what an algorithm is telling us? What do you think?
That's the question, isn't it?
Yeah, it's something to think about for sure. And that's what these deep dives are all about, getting us to think, question things, and maybe, yeah, freak out a little bit about the world we live in. Catch you on next one.
See ya.